Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, we're bringing back the intro for those of you that have been saying you've been missing it, so there you go. But anyway, today we are talking about coal ships, which are probably one of the most popular types of resource/premium ships in the game because, well, coal ships are essentially free ships. All you have to do to get one is just play the game a bit, make sure you get as much coal as possible, and you can easily have a coal ship within a couple of months, maybe even a month if you are super dedicated to getting every single ounce of coal you can get out of the game, out of the events and such. However, despite their popularity, it might be a little bit of a surprise to you guys the time that's elapsed between the last actual coal ship being introduced into the game and today, the day of recording this. We are a little ways under a month and a half away from it being 2 full years since the last true coal ship was added to the game. And that ship was the U-4501, everyone's favorite undersea rocket. That was the last true blue coal ship, which was released on October 11th, 2023. It was released in the armory for coal, outright. Now you might be thinking, well, hold up a second, Sealer, did you not just release a video the other day talking about the new coal ship coming to the game, which is the Nottingham? Yes, I did. You see, Nottingham follows Wargaming's newer method of releasing coal ships.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
And that they are a ship that's originally released in some type of event, and then 6 months to a year to sometimes 2 years later, the ship is then added into the armory for some type of resource, or doubloons. That's the method Wargaming's been using here more recently with coal ships. However, these aren't real true coal ships. You know, a true coal ship in my eyes, and I'm sure many of you guys' eyes, is a ship that is announced, goes through the development process, and then is released straight into the armory for coal. But like we said, that hasn't happened in, well, coming upon 2 years. And even looking at the ships that go through a similar process to the Nottingham, the coal ship additions are very few and far between. Before the Nottingham, I believe the last time we got a ship added into the armory for coal was the Key, which was, I think she got it added into the army for coal about 5-ish months ago. So, yeah, 3 months after that, we get the Nottingham added for coal, but these still aren't new coal ships, and they're not being added at a overly fast rate, shall we say. But there are a couple of reasons for this that I've managed to deduce over the past year. So we actually talked about this subject at the start of the year, but now that we're getting to the end, I think it's interesting to take a look back at Wargaming's new trend with these coal ships. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But before we go any further, if you wouldn't mind going down below, dropping a like, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel, those 3 actions help out tremendously so the YouTube side of things. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would do that. But anyway, coal ships. So there is indeed a simple truth to coal ships, and the fact is, coal ships don't really make Wargaming money. They do throw coal ships for sale up in the armory and the premium shop, meaning that you can get them for coal for free, but you can also turn around and purchase them either for doubloons or for cash outright in the premium shop. However, I'm willing to bet 80% of players more than likely just grind out the coal to get a coal ship. Coal is a resource that's not overly hard to obtain. All you really have to do really is have patience. If you get your 3 daily coal containers from your daily containers, you will get a coal ship in about 3-ish months if you log in every day and get those 3 containers. Let alone if you partake in brawls, which gives coal, or if you take part in the dockyard, which also gives coal, or if you do the battle pass, which of course brings you coal. Among whatever event is going on in game at the time where Wargaming does normally give away an amount of coal. So it's not hard to get coal, that's what I'm saying. So most players will opt to just acquire the coal and get the ship for free rather than buying it. Now, of course, there are players, those guys that just buy everything in the game that do, cash in a little bit of cashola for coal. but the vast majority of players are getting them for free. Of course, Wargaming needs to ensure that the game is making money in some way, shape, or form, so a very simple answer to this is, well, they don't make money from coal ships really, so they're not going to really release anymore. However, there is a trade-off with coal. You do have to play the game in order to acquire coal. You see, coal is a finite resource in game. There's only so much coal out there to be obtained every patch. It's not like free XP. Free XP ships went the way of the dodo. Well, they went the way of the Research Bureau, where now you have to, regrind a line, 5 times to get it. So it's a much harder grind now than it was back in the day. But yeah, free XP, you could reasonably sit down and really, if you had enough boosters that Wargaming used to hand out like candy back in the day, you could conceivably grind out a free XP ship in a handful of days, really, back in the day. Not so much anymore, of course, but coal, there's only so much out there. You only get your 3 daily coal containers, and then whatever else they're offering up in the battle pass and then the various events and stuff going on in that patch. The point is, Wargaming can control how much of it is flowing into the game. So it's a win-win for Wargaming because they are providing players with ships that they want, and they can control how much coal is going out there, so they can incentivize players to log on every day and play the game. So it was a win-win for Wargaming for quite some time. You get players playing the game, they're getting ships that they want, easy peasy lemon squeezy. However, there seemed to be a little bit of irresponsibility with the coal printing machine, because nowadays coal is a resource that many players just have an absolute ton of. I have 1.3 or 1.4 million coal on my account right now. Why? I have all the coal ships, and Wargaming hasn't been adding them fast enough for me to, run out of coal before I can get the next one. I have so much coal on me right now, I can buy, 3, 4 coal ships easily at this moment, and I stopped getting the 3 daily coal containers not too long after they removed combat flags from achievements, because I couldn't farm, my combat flags with, by getting close quarters and dreadnought and whatever anymore. Now I have to buy them with credits, so I get the combat flag containers instead of the coal containers, because that's much more desirable to me now at this point, because they haven't been introducing these coal ships. Well, I have a couple of theories about that. First off, there's quite a lot of coal ships already in the game. If you haven't perused through the armory, there is exactly 50 coal ships currently available for purchase. That's a lot. That's a lot of coal ships. Honestly, that's more than I thought there was currently in the armory. I thought there was maybe 30, but no, there are 50 coal ships currently available. And a lot of these coal ships are very, very good ships. Like Black, one of the best tier 9 destroyers in my opinion. You got the Napoli, one of the, if not the best tier 10 cruiser. You got the Yoshino, the Moskva, the Khabarovsk. Now, Moskva and Khabarovsk, I love those two. Some don't. I think they're great ships. But Pommern is so good for tier 9 asymmetrics, for tier 9 brawls, for tier 9 ranked. Azuma is one of the best credit printing ships in the game. It's a coal ship. Kearsarge is a really, really solid tier 9 premium ship, and one of the better tier 9 premiums in my opinion. Unfortunately, it does happen to be a hybrid ship. Jaeger is a hilariously fun torpedo boat, so forth and so on. Key's a great coal ship, Anhalt's a great coal ship, Duke of York's a great coal ship. There's tons of good coal ships that you can get right now. And honestly, having 50 of them available, that's a pretty good roster to offer your player base. 50 free ships. And honestly, yeah, that's going to take your average Joe quite some time to grind. Oh yeah, Tromp's in there too. I forgot Tromp's a coal ship. So your average Joe might take 3 months to acquire a coal ship, right? And that's if they, they get on, they play every day, they get their 3 daily coal containers, they take part in a couple events to get some extra coal. It will take them 150 months to acquire all these coal ships, if again, they're an average Joe, right? Again, if you're more dedicated, probably less, but still, 150 months, that's 10 years. Even if you cut it down to 2 months per coal ship, that's still 100 months to get all these coal ships. So there's a lot there for the more average players to get, right? But obviously the more competitive players, the more regular players, they earn faster because, again, we take part in, rank, brawls, all the events that pop up in the game. The Wargaming looks at that and says, okay, we've got more than enough coal ships here to keep our average Joe busy for years, right? Now we can kind of have our cake and eat it too. Because now we can go ahead and introduce these ships in these events where, they're only available either in a sequential bundle or an Admiral pack. We gotta fork over a bunch of money to get it. And then we can wait 6 months to a year to then reintroduce the ship as a coal ship to the armory, to where, we got our early access event, we got all the money from that, and now we're bringing it back as a coal ship a year later to add to the armory, right? And that's a win for Wargaming because they add another coal ship and they also get their early access money, right? So that's the model they've been kind of following. And we've kind of seen more of this, well, a big step toward this. Well, we've got more than enough premiums now to where we don't really need to, focus on adding in too many resource ships. At least not coal ships. They are apparently adding in a bunch of new steel ships here pretty soon from what we've heard from Gamescom. But again, we haven't got that dev blog yet, so that's not confirmed at this moment. But as we saw with the ship rotation mechanic, Wargaming does very much think that the premium shop in the army is a little bit full, so they can go ahead and wipe out, 40-something ships and, bring them back in a couple of months, right? So clearly they've, entered this mindset. And on top of that, for the more dedicated and veteran players, they seem to be leaning more into steel ships. If what was announced at Gamescom is confirmed to be true, because we haven't got a dev blog on this announcement just yet, we're getting something like 3 or 4 new steel ships here very soon toward the end of 2025, and I think into 2026 again. We'll see when that dev blog that supposedly gets released this week gets released. So from what I'm seeing, it appears that they're leaning into, hey, veteran players, steel ships. These steel ships are pretty cool, right? Pretty crazy. We know you want them, so get to playing ranked and clan battles and such and grind out all this steel. And, you too can potentially own one of these crazy steel ships. So that's what it appears is happening to me, at least. I think the traditional coal ship is just dead at this point. Again, we're not that far away from it being 2 years since we've gotten a straight-up coal ship added to the game, and it's going to keep being these, hey, look, here's this ship in early access, and it might return in 6 months to a year as a coal ship, which I'm kind of torn on that, because on one hand, if you want to pay for something that's, early, and it's just going to be added to the armory in 6 months as a coal ship, okay, cool, fine, whatever. But the issue I have with that is that very, very often, it's not overly clear if that ship's going to be added to the armory, in 6 months as a coal ship or as a research bureau ship or as a doubloon ship. Wargaming doesn't really tell us all the time, as I'm sure many of you have noticed. So that's the issue I have with that approach. Other than that, if they would just say, okay, I'm going to use the Indiana as an example here. I don't know for sure if they've announced how the ship's coming out yet, so I am just making this up, okay? I'm just as an example for this, just to be clear. So the Indiana, let's say they announce, okay, the Indiana's going to come out in her own little event. She's going to be available either in random bundles or you can buy her in an Admiral pack. After that, in 6 months, she will be added to the premium shop for doubloon and also added to the armory for coal, for however much coal a tier 9 premium goes for nowadays. So if they say that and they give us, a clear date for when, the ship will be added into the armory for either, coal doubloons or whatever, I'm cool with that. But so often they don't, because obviously, they want to lead into that FOMO a little bit, hey, this may not be back for 2 years, who knows, so you better get it now, because, obviously that's a very popular tactic with Wargaming right now. So that's my issue when it comes to this, new style of coal ship, if you will. So let me know in the comments down below, guys, do you think, coal ships of old are just dead and we're going to have to deal with this new system for the time being? And are you okay with this new system with the way it is, or if Wargaming is a little bit more clear about how these ships are being released and when they would be re-released in the future, would you be okay with it? Share all that and more with us down below. Hope you guys enjoy. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.